Who's your candidate? My name is Marcus Musante, and I'm running for Compton City Attorney. And I'm running because there aren't many times in life, maybe only once, where you have a real chance to help and support and influence 100,000 people, like the position of City Attorney can do.
What's going on, man?
How are you?
Nice
to see you.
Good to see you, man. We didn't rush you here, did we?
No, you're good.
All right, so we're gonna
Thanks
set
for
up.
coming.
Oh, man. Here with Marcus Musante. Again, I appreciate you taking the time to give me this interview so we can get to know who Marcus Musante is. Am I pronouncing that right?
It is.
Musante.
Nice and Italian.
Okay, good, good. So tell us, who is Marcus Musante?
Sure. Well, Marcus Musante is a 38-year-old lawyer, originally from the Bay Area, now living in Compton. I think to understand me, you kind of have to understand where I came from, like all of us. My folks were polar opposites. My mom, Berkeley, 1960s, involved with the Panther movement. My dad on the cop tactical squad, basically in charge of handling riots. They actually met 1969 at a protest, Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco. My mom protesting and my dad there with the full cop riot gear. And 39 years later, she's still in his face, daring him to do something, and he's still there, just standing there laughing at her. I went to school in Boston, but I always knew that I wanted to practice law. Ever since reading To Kill a Mockingbird, there was something about justice that just was inside of me. And it actually wasn't until many years later that I understood why that was. But it's kind of been a lifelong pursuit of justice. And that led me to the DA's office, which was an incredible experience. And then it's brought me to the defense for the last 4.5. And it's been bringing me to try to represent a community that I believe has that similar feel of justice, but often questions it, often really has experiences where you have to dig deep to come to your belief in it. There's only so many words that are hard to define, and that's one of them. And that's what brought me to Compton.
Okay. Now, general questions.
Sure.
Who's favorite movie?
My favorite movie, Scent of a Woman.
Scent of a Woman. Scent of a Woman.
Scent of a Woman.
Okay. Favorite song?
Favorite song, Three Little Birds.
Okay. Favorite place to vacation?
What does that mean? What's a vacation? Well, depending on how much you're going to give me to vacation, I guess if I could, New York City.
Okay. Okay. Now, since you've been here in the city of Compton, it's been 2 years now, right?
2 years.
Okay.
Today the 13th or 14th?
14.
14.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's
2 years
2 years
yesterday.
Yesterday, huh?
Yeah, I
Okay.
thought it was last week, but it was March 13th, 2015.
Congratulations.
No, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what has been the general response since you moved to the city and began to run for office? What has been the public's response to who Marcus Musante is?
Sure. Well, it's very interesting. With the Latino community, it's just kind of been, hello. I've been practicing my Spanish, which is coming along slowly. But, kind of, you don't notice much, I've been in LA a long time. But the African American community, it's been very interesting because you have one or two responses. It's either been very welcoming, especially for a defense attorney, especially since I was kind of immediately involved in the political arena, but I was kind of arguing their issues like a lawyer does. Then split with another segment of the African American community who was absolutely convinced that I must be an undercover federal agent because it's the only explanation why a white guy would move into Compton.
And that brings me to my next question. Why does one white guy go from San Diego to Compton, California?
Sure. Well, I was only in San Diego a little over a year.
Okay.
I was in LA for about 10. And I had the chance to teach at a community college and live in northern San Diego, and it's real nice. But given where I come from, hence the protest where I was conceptually conceived, it was boring for me. It just, that justice, that tension, that struggle of the law, that's not there. And Compton, you had heard of Compton, but I didn't know much about Compton. I knew a little of the history. But, I figured there's not going to be a lot of criminal defense attorneys. There's going to be a common language there of criminal justice. And I'm pretty bored here in San Diego. And let's go there. And then let's also look into this congressional race.
So of all the things that crossed your mind in
Yeah.
moving to, or just moving period,
Yeah.
what other cities may have been on your radar leaving
Sure.
where you were at before?
San Pedro.
San Pedro.
Yeah.
And did you move here just to get into politics?
No, I moved here because, at least as a defense attorney, no one had tried to do it before. I moved here also because in the couple of years leading up, actually in the year leading up to March of 2015, you had all of these shootings going on across the country with police and especially young African American men. And given my background of having a mother that was in the movement and a father who was a cop, I used to drive into LA anytime there was a march, which was happening a lot. And, Compton has that, it's not like the history of Watts, but it's all kind of geographically similar. And, it wasn't that I thought it would happen again, but it was just, it's kind of hard to say, but you can kind of feel when there may be certain cities where somebody who has really tried to come to at least his own personal understanding of the word justice, where that is available to at least study. And so this was the right place to come. And then there's turned out to be other elements I never even knew about that has definitely confirmed that.
Like what?
Like the very interesting relationship between the black community and the Latino community. I wasn't aware of that.
What do you see the relationship to be?
The way I see it, it's almost as if there's a restaurant that everyone wants to eat at and there's one booth. And you only have enough people for that booth, but you have a family of African Americans and you have a family of Latinos, and who's going to get the booth? And it's not at a point where they'll pull up a table and all sit down together. That's for sure.
Okay.
That's a weird analogy. The post office, Smart and Final, Food for Less, and the courthouse is where I find more than 20 African Americans and 20 Latinos under the same roof. And that's very interesting. Especially since if you had a city where somehow they were more united, it would be unlike any other city in the world.
Now, going back to your living situation,
Yeah.
Are you renting or are you owning?
I'm renting.
Okay.
I'm renting.
Renting.
I'm seeing what happens, soon. And because I'm a believer, if you represent, you live in the city. And so hopefully the interest rates don't go crazy, but I would look to purchase following should I be elected. But for the last 2 years, renting.
Okay. So in the event that you're not elected, do you still plan to stay in the city?
It would be hard. It would be hard to justify that because I would ask myself, what can I do? I've tried. I'm not going to wait 4 years just to try to run again. I think I could do more in that time of maybe having a legal clinic. But the answer to your question is no. No, I wouldn't. And that's not because I don't have that feel for it, but you can only help if your help is wanted. Just like you can only love someone if they don't want it, why would you keep trying? And I tried a little too big, and this is a city that needs new lawyer. And so if I'm not the guy, I'm going to go somewhere where I can be an effective lawyer.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, are you living here with any family? Or
No.
you just-
No, just just me.
So you on the solo mission?
I had a dog, but he's with his grandma.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm not home very often.
You said you're a defense attorney.
Yeah.
Okay. And how long have you been an attorney?
I've been an attorney 12 and a half years. 13 come November.
What's some of the most difficult things about being a defense attorney?
Punishment. Yeah, the punishment. Everyone thinks of crime. It's the first thing. Crime. But justice really lies in punishment. It's not too hard to come to a consensus of what should be legal, but what should the punishment be? You know, should cats be in prison for, you know, having this much crack and they chipped off a half to sell just to get their half so they could use? It's called a user-seller. There's guys in prison 7 years for that because of priors. That's hard. A kid driving down the freeway the wrong way because he's drunk and hits and kills a 17-year-old. Doesn't even remember it happening. What's the punishment? Now, those were all as a DA. As a defense attorney, I have a nurse, never been in trouble before, is at a .08 DUI. If he gets convicted, he loses his job. He takes care of his mother, who's almost on hospice. That's the toughest part, because you're really dealing with effect on people's lives.
Why should the citizens of Compton trust Marcus Musante?
Why should the citizen? Well, gosh, I always believe that you have to go with your gut and your instinct. I'm here because I care. I don't make these false pretenses of, oh, I'm coming into Compton, as was described as, on a white horse, and I'm going to tell everybody what's up, and I'm your guy. I don't have a Moses complex. I don't have a Jesus complex. But the law is different. In my whole career, I have represented African Americans and Latinos. I would say 95% of my cases. And I've gotten to know both of these cultures. In fact, I would say I know these cultures as well as you can without obviously being part of the culture, right? And I know the similarities and I know the differences. In this city, there's so much that goes on here. And I wouldn't be able to pretend to run for mayor. That wouldn't be right. Or even city council. Those are people who are leading the city. And the lawyer is basically the one who defends it. They're the ones who have to cover the flank. They're the ones who have to sometimes be aggressive. But it's not always from the front. It's from the side. And I'm an ethical lawyer. I'm an ethical lawyer. It matters tremendously to me the way I practice the law.
Let's talk about your aggression or going headfirst into some situations.
Sure.
You recently filed a public record.
Yes. Request.
Public record request, right?
I did.
And, well, have you gotten a response yet?
I did, kind of. It's right here. I brought it for you. I just picked it up. Well, first let me explain the public information request real quick.
Okay.
And I'll give you copies. So you hear a lot of things when you live here, right? And you have to separate,
Truth from fact.
Right. But a lot of times, the sugar, honey, and iced tea are the sugar, honey, and iced tea. And other times, you've got to cut all of that. And this public information request was trying to separate that, because you can't always count on what you hear until you get the actual evidence. Right. So I had heard about how much our city attorney outsources to other legal firms, because most cities, not most, but a lot, especially around here, they don't elect the city attorney. Linwood doesn't, Carson doesn't, LA does, but it's in the charter. And they have a staff.
Pick up the line, please, Amy.
They have a staff of several attorneys. And so it kind of caught my ear of why we were outsourcing so much. So I had asked for the records. And especially I wanted to know the reason for the outsourcing, and how much it was for. So I'll give you an example. This is just an example. There was a lawsuit against the mayor by an employee who claimed she was never paid.
Right.
And so given that the city attorney has to represent the mayor, just in terms of, because it's an action against a city official, that has to get outsourced. Well, did we contract with a firm that charges $700 an hour? Because that's not unheard of. Or did we take bids? That's separate. But I wanted to see, how much is that for? How much have we paid for things? And I didn't get it. All I got was that, which I don't even know what to make of it. But there's no explanation of why that was paid. There's no explanation of...
It just says Richard Watson Legal Services and
right, which is
$9,600.
Right.
But what is this for?
They didn't want to tell us. They didn't want to tell us. And then
there's several different ones on here with different figures.
Right.
It doesn't say why.
It doesn't say why. And that is the question I've always come back to here in Compton, is the who, it's your elected officials. You know what the what is, it's where's all the money. The where is one of the questions, but it's why. Why is money spent there? Why is money spent there? And you never get the answer of why. And an attorney knows that the why is it's the biggest part of the case. It goes towards motive,
right.
Goes towards the defense, goes towards justification, and you never hear the why.
So what do you do to follow this up? Because obviously you didn't get any answers.
Right. What you have to do, and don't be fooled, they know this. Mm-hmm. All right? Don't think, a good example is George W. Bush, who he was not my guy. Mm-hmm. But you could even say Senor Trump, right? Not my guy. But there's got to be an element of being clever in order to reach the presidency. That doesn't mean you're smart, and but you got to be clever.
Right.
And don't think they're not clever. Mm-hmm. I'm not comparing anybody to the two. But they know, because if they do this, what am I going to do? They know I work full time. They know I'm engaged in an election full time. It's not like, super firms are going to descend into Compton and save the day. In fact, they all say, this is what Compton's known for, mm-hmm. right? This is why we don't get involved. And so technically I'd have to go to court. I'd have to file a court order, an injunction. Now, given people start voting soon, it's very difficult, which is why it's never really exposed. But they're clever. They know that. And so they're going to give you the bare minimum. And then the city attorney will point at the controller will point at the treasurer will say, well, it wasn't clear, and it's this wonderful merry-go-round.
So you're up for this?
Yeah. I'm up for which part? Going to court or the position?
Well, the position. Because This is something that these are the types of things that you would typically deal with.
So, listen, it's not the most fun thing being the white guy living in Compton. No one gives me a hard time, but ladies who I meet outside, they're very hesitant to come see me in Compton. People I meet here, they can be friendly, but it's always at an arm's distance. A lot of people are like, yeah, thanks, but we don't want your help. A lot of people don't listen to me, but when a lawyer is needed somewhere. And if I don't have that compass, if you will, then what do I have? And so I know it's not easy, but listen, I'm not trying to be Superman. I'm not trying to be Batman. But this is the type of stuff that needs to just be cleaned up. And in my opinion, only the lawyer can do it.
What is it that you can do different than the current city attorney, Craig Cornwell?
I could represent the people instead of representing the mayor. I think that's what's going on. Even if it's not some devious kind of manipulative plan. I think Craig has been up there a while. He's been in that office 18 years. 18 years. It was his job out of law school. And if he gets elected, he'll be up there 14. And I think if you take any elected office, if you leave somebody up there past 10 years, they start becoming the institution. You could look at Sheriff Baca. You could look at I guess you could kind of say District Attorney Steve Cooley. It wasn't so much personality-wise, but it's such a big position to leave someone up there 12 years. And even, president, 8 years is the max. I personally think these really long terms of Senate and Congress. So anyways, but on a smaller scale, I think he's just become the institution. And so any fresh blood that gets in there is that just total different approach to the position and the work, but mostly, it's who are you representing? So what I do different is I go in there and my loyalty, my duty is to represent the people, even if it's in conflict with some of those in City Hall.
Now, I've over the last few weeks, I've talked with several different citizens, former elected officials, current elected officials. When we asked about Marcus Musante, the general response is, I like him. I think that he can do something different, but I don't know about him.
Sure.
And obviously, you would expect to get that response to the white guy in Compton for 2 years. How are you going to relate?
Sure. Well, first, let me state that I am unequivocally not an undercover federal agent, police officer. In fact, it would be impossible being an attorney to be an informant because everything's privileged information. So whether people want to believe it or not, I don't care, but I just want to put that out there. Sure. So, what can I do? You try to spend time with everybody, all right? But I guess the best way, I'm trying to think, I guess the best way is when you've been around the crime and the dark side and the underbelly of what people can do to each other, it can harden you a little bit. It can make you a little kind of rough around the edges. And I think that people, they've seen that with me, and that's the hardest transition to politics, is because you're no longer just a lawyer, you're an elected official.
Right.
And I think a lot of that has to do with maturity. And of course, if you're married and you have kids, it's kind of this symbolic of, oh, okay, right? Like, somebody likes him enough, but when you're moving around, that is tough. But, I guess the best way I could do it for this is, I'll tell you a story I once heard that really stuck with me. A man passes away, and he goes upstairs, and he's greeted at heaven, and he's very excited to be there. And the this would be St. Peter. It doesn't really matter. He takes them on the tour, and they go into a room, and he says, "Welcome, everything you want is here." And he looks in the room, long table with the most elegant food and wine and just the music, everything's wonderful. And the people in there are they're crying, and they're in misery, because everyone's arms are locked. You can't bend your arms. And so they have the most beautiful food and wine, and they're trying to eat, but they can't, because they can't bend their arms. And it just looks miserable. And the guy turns to his guy and he says, are you sure I'm in heaven? What did I do wrong? He starts getting really scared. And the gentleman says, do you want to leave? And he says, no, because there's just something not right. This can't be heaven. So he says, follow me. And they go to the next room, and it's the same thing. Same food, same wine, and everyone there is wonderful, and they're happy, and they're all eating, and they're all drinking. And the man says, yes, this is heaven. And do you know what the difference was between those two rooms?
What's the difference?
Was that in the first room, no one could eat because their arms were just stretched out.
Right.
But in the second room, everyone's arms were stretched out, and they couldn't be bent, but they were feeding and serving one another. And that is what's lacking in City Hall, is everybody focuses on not being able to bend their elbows, instead of realizing that they all share the fact that the people of this city voted for them. And that's just a story that's always stuck with me. And that's what I hope to take into City Hall.
Good story. Citizens' questions.
All right.
Straight from the citizens.
From the people.
What is the difference between Marcus Musante and Craig Cornwell?
How we practice the law. Craig is very mellow. He is very nice to engage with. He is kind of not as vocal, right? I am not like that. I was sick the day they taught that. I'm a litigator. I'm a trial attorney. You know, you really use diplomacy in negotiations. And whether it's in court or on a $10 million contract, it's very similar. You know, you go way down, they say absolutely not, and then you get what you want, right? But when that doesn't work, there are two types of lawyers. There's those who fight, and there's those who don't. It has nothing to do with moral character or who's a better person. It's how you practice the law. You know, there's a reason why Lady Justice has that sword in her hand. She doesn't play. And she don't even need to see you, right? But those scales do come first. And those scales represent a lot. But Craig is, he's more passive. And I'm not. And I think that has been a detriment to this city. And I think that people very much need to at least try to see if another way of lawyering will work. Because sometimes you have to go on the offensive. Case in point, there have been judgments against certain individuals who own a lot of property in this city. And I mean a lot. Who haven't done anything with the property or they're not doing enough. And there has been judgments. And that's going to take a certain person who doesn't care who their lawyer is. We're gonna, you know, I'm drawing a line in the sand. You know, do what you want to do. I'm not scared. We're Compton, right? This is the thing that always kind of gets to me, is there's too much passivity in some elected, not all, obviously, but in some elected officials, and it's like, I'm sorry, but this is Compton, right? Like, perhaps the opposite of when I think of passive. And I think that's one of its great characteristics. Of course, that's coming from the Italian. But that's the biggest thing, is how we look at practicing the law. You have someone who's going to be quiet, and you have someone who's going to be loud. But again, I don't mean this like at City Hall or at like City Council meetings. There's a level of professionalism. But don't get it twisted. The courtroom is often a battlefield. And I think that that's what we need to go get money that's owed to us.
Did you come to Compton just for a political career?
No, I came to Compton. Part of why I was in San Diego is I really had to call a timeout to see if I still wanted to practice law. It's hard being a criminal defense attorney. It's hard to make the phone ring, and it's hard to deal, like I said, with crime all day long. And I went down to San Diego, and it was nice, and I was still, you know, taking cases. But there was something still calling me to LA, and it had to do with criminal justice. So I said, all right, let's go to Compton. And yes, the politics played a role, but it wasn't just to try to get elected. And if you really ever thought about running for office, you would understand this. If you look at presidential elections, people are paying attention the most during the elections. And so if you have a message, or if you just want to get something out there to make people think, you have to run. But of course, then everyone kind of sees you through this veil of, well, he can't be sincere because he's running for office. It's this great kind of reality of politics. So the answer is no, it's not the only reason. However, given that open seat, and I knew there'd be a lot of candidates, and hopefully I could get the message of criminal justice reform out there, it was in my mind.
What would you want the citizens of Compton to know about Marcus Musante?
Sure. I mean, the greatest thing I would want them to know, and if there is nothing else, if they are just left knowing this and I don't win, I'll be fine, is that I really came here and I really, really am running because I want to work together and I want to help to make this a better city, and especially to help people who need to be helped. That's what I've always done in my career. The great honor of being a DA was that you get to help those who need to be helped and hurt those who need to be hurt. The great role of a defense attorney is you really can fight to then try to get people what they deserve. And it's why I'm here. I wanted to come across as I really am here to try to help and to try to serve. And this is a big, choppy water kind of an area here in City Hall. But that part comes second to, I wouldn't want to represent a client who didn't think that I genuinely cared about their interests. Otherwise, you're a bogus lawyer. And I just don't think it matters that it's an elected official. It's called city attorney. And I just hope I can come across as sincere. But it's always hard when your name's on a ballot.
Yeah.
And I understand. I do. But it is true that my intentions are truly good. And we'll see. We'll see if my services are wanted. But I'll be okay. I'll be all right.
Right.
I just, it's, Compton here belongs to the citizens, and especially the citizens who vote. And so we'll see.
Mr. Musante, thank you
Yes, sir.
again for
Oh.
giving me the time.
My pleasure.
I
Thanks for
appreciate
caring.
it, man.
Thanks for coming.
Absolutely.
I'm the white guy running for office in Compton.
And that worries people. That's
Oh, if you heard Gilroy, he thinks it's like a CIA fucking conspiracy.
I haven't.
You know,
I haven't-
homeboy with his big old lips.
These are the personalities that you have to deal with.
Yes, they are.
Coming in. And it's not going to be easy
No?
to deal with.
No more.
And you also have to watch what you say and how you say it.
Yes, I do. I got in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
It's hard. But yeah, people turn on me real quick like that.
People already turn real quick, generally.
They're on me.
But you're easy.
You millennials don't care as much about black and brown. You know, you went to school together, you were around each other, and you get it. I'm sure there's certain things like me, you know, that I'm like, holy shit. Like when I met Ross, and someone next to me's got like 8 kids, and everyone's like cap teeth, and it's all Espanol. I'm like, holy shit, it's like Trump Tower.